Hello, my name is Luna, also known as Umberwitch within the FGC and on the internet as a whole. Welcome to my humble abode. I just want to start by saying that this is a video I kind of feel uncomfortable making. It kind of pains me to have to make this video, if I'm being oh so honest. I never really thought that I would have the courage to post a video like this, but due to the current circumstances, I kind of feel like I have a platform, and this is a very important time for me to use that platform to the best of my ability. If you're wondering, this video is going to detail my experience with Brutal Democracy, my time with them, and all, everything that happened behind the scenes. I'm sure y'all have seen around on Twitter that there's some messiness going on around the brand, and for a long time I really did respect at least the managing director, or who was the managing director at the time, which was Oliver. I really respected the people that I worked under. They were always kind to me and never really gave me a reason to try to cross them, which isn't what I'm doing now by any means. However, you don't bite the hand that feeds you. In the same way that I would never say anything derogatory or just flat out lie about the people who gave me the opportunity to be on Brutal Democracy, the people that made Brutal Democracy what it is now also should not have anything derogatory being said about them or any lies being spread in their name. Seeing my peers and people that I formed friendships with while I was on the team, seeing them being kind of torn apart by current members of BDG, it just doesn't sit right with me. It doesn't. It doesn't feel good to know that, people who are sharing their stories that honestly I can corroborate with, are being told that they're lying, being told that they're being unprofessional, being told, that they're, that they need to be reported. Everybody needs to report their tweets and report their accounts and get their stuff taken down, or whatever is being said in the BDG group chats right now. It's just completely inappropriate, and honestly, I have a few owners of certain brands that follow me, and I've always been kind of scared to speak on something like this, which is why I was even scared to post the last video that I posted on Twitter, just kind of talking about how organizations can be so shady. I never wanted to look like a liability, and I don't want to look like one. I'm not trying to be one. I'm not trying to tear anyone down, but what I know is going on behind closed doors, and what I know has happened to me outright, it's not good. And if I don't speak on it, then that just means that there's one less person telling their story, and that's just a little bit less courage or strength it could make someone else feel who also wants to share their story but feels like they cannot do so. I know the platform that I have, and I know the engagement that I can have on my social media when I talk about things that are important, and I never ask of anything, but if I could please ask that y'all help me share this video, and y'all help me share the stories of people who were formerly with Brutal Democracy, it would mean the absolute world to me. As far as I've seen recently, the people that are getting the most heat for telling their stories with Brutal Democracy have never been derogatory. Nobody that I've seen leave since I left has been derogatory or rude about their leaving in any way. There's a few that I can name that I've seen say some shit, like they were being held back by Brutal Democracy or what have you, but I've never seen anything outright rude or anything that was outright lies. Like I said, there's some details that are being shared about the behind the scenes that I can 100% corroborate with, because I've had similar things happen to me while I was on the team. So without further ado, we're going to get started on my background in the FGC and with Brutal Democracy. I am still fairly new to the FGC. I did not join the FGC, more specifically the Tekken scene, until late September of last year, of 2019. Before then, I was just a fan looking on from afar. So being involved with this community directly, especially getting brand deals and being on a team, having that prefix in front of your name, knowing the opportunity that could bring me, it was a very exciting venture. It was very new to me, and I was at a low point in my life at the time. So I threw myself into this wholeheartedly. Like I said, I joined the Tekken scene in late September. And I met Kawaii Face Miles in late November. I guess at the time that we had met, she was being brought on board for Brutal Democracy, and they had asked her if she knew anybody who would want to be on the team, who would be a good fit for being a content creator for the team. And so my name was brought up, and they reached out to me on November 20th of 2019, asking me if I would like to be a part of their content creation team. I was confused at the time because like I said, I was very new. I didn't have any substantial following at all across any of my social media. My Twitter, which is kind of the main platform that FGC people use to grow their brand and their platform, was at maybe 200 followers at most. Alright, so I guess we're just refilming like every single fucking segment of this video until I stop rambling. So basically, I was just confused as to why they approached me when I had basically nothing. You have to question the legitimacy of a brand when they are approaching people who have pretty much nothing to give. If they give it to just any average Joe, then where is the exclusivity and where do the benefits really come in? I told them that I didn't stream. I shared with them that I had tried to be an influencer in many different ways in my time on the internet. Well, I didn't have a Twitch. He told me that he couldn't find my Twitch link, and that's because I hadn't even streamed yet. And might I add that this detail that I had never streamed before and that I was being picked up and built from the ground up, apparently, it was understood by the managing director, but it was never directly communicated to the stream team manager, who was a person that I was working directly underneath. And I know this because when I had my first meeting with the stream team manager, I brought up that I had never done it before, and I just wanted to make sure that he knew, and he had no idea, which is just kind of weird that there's always this miscommunication within the team. It doesn't make any sense. So what they told me was that I would be representing the brand at events, and I would be wearing brand apparel. We set up a meeting. This initial conversation was... it was one that there were some things that were said that weren't the most, I guess, like politically correct things to say. I'm not gonna say like it was all bad or like it was anything that was cancelable by any means, but I asked if my Twitter and my brand was too edgy for the team. And I just wanted to make sure that I was going to be good to post whatever I wanted, and I didn't want to cross any boundaries with that they had personally. My Twitter profile picture was literally a picture of me with like my vag covered up by like a heart sticker, and I just wanted to make sure it was good. And what I was told was that, I can't post anything too crazy, but ultimately sex sells. And I, for the rest of my time on the team, was held to a different standard. There were people that were being kicked from the team for posting or even engaging in other people's posts that were inappropriate. However, I was never reprimanded directly for engaging in anything sexual or inappropriate or not brand friendly. There were occurrences where a manager would scold kind of the group chat as a whole and tell us, if we ever catch you doing this, if we ever catch you doing that, we're off the team immediately. But it was never ever said to anyone directly, especially not to me. I was told that they wanted to change the standard of how things were within the FGC, and they wanted to show everybody that no matter your size or whoever you are, as far as being LGBT, whatever race, whatever orientation, gender, whatever, that they wanted to show that they were an all-inclusive team, and that they thought that me being on the team along with Miles would push that. As it began, pretty much everything was going off of spoken word. I did not have a contract for a while until I was already in the team server and already started, to promote the brand and things of that nature. So what the initial deal was that I would be a part of their Twitch stream team. So that means that I would have to promote other Twitch streamers who are also on the team with me. And the general idea was that we would all help each other grow, and within doing so, we would also help Brutal Democracy grow just as a unit. That means that we would retweet each other's streams, we would like each other's posts, we would raid and host over to each other at the end of our streams. It was understood that that was requirement, we would have to do that. But like I said, I was also told that I would be a model for the team. I would be one of a face of the brand, along with Nikki at the time and Miles at the time. What I was told, like I said, was that, you know, sex sells. So as weird as it felt for him to ask me for pictures, he still had to ask me for pictures in the apparel and things that would be, you know, marketable, that would sell the apparel. So I did, you know, I understood, you know, as a brand owner, if you're going to be providing me with merch, then you're going to need me to be able to sell that merch. Alright, so I'm going to throw up some examples on the screen of where my pictures were used, and when I say pictures, I only mean one picture because only one of them was used. It was used for about 3 or 4 different designs of the Twitter banner, and then after that, they were never seen again, and I was never approached or used as far as modeling and stuff of that nature. I also just want to include the fact that a photographer was brought on board later on, and with that photographer came their own models, so those were more often than not the people who were promoting the merch. And there was actually a conversation that I had with someone else on the team who didn't even have any idea that they could get refunded for the merch that they were purchasing in order to model for BDG, which was just super sus to me. So pretty much the mission of this team were pretty much just false. They always preached about being all-inclusive. Anybody of any size could be on the sponsor, and you know, it was no issue. They were no different. They were just as worthy. However, they would take the effort of all the committed smaller creators for granted, and whenever they got a bigger opportunity because of us, we were just kind of pushed aside, and it was never fully acknowledged out in the open. And you know, they finally dropped their merch for the next season, which I believe was like spring or summer or something, and I saw the designs and I straight up didn't like them. I told him, would it be too brutally honest if I said I would feel kind of dirty pushing merch designs I don't like? And then he said, there are a few I would wear for the pictures, though I just think our designs could be tweaked a bit. And then he never got back to me. So the whole like modeling the merch thing was completely thrown out the window. All that I really liked of the merchant I had was the one hoodie, and that hoodie, not to mention, deteriorated on me very quickly. Try to show it as best as I can. You can see that the graphic is completely like scratching off, and even in the places where it's not scratched off, like the top layer of it is slowly starting to come off, so it just looks discolored and all fucked up. And I always took very special care of that sweater in specific because somebody else on the team told me that their sweater had shrunk when they put it in the dryer, so I'm like, all right, let me just be delicate with this sweater, let me not mistreat it. But it still turned out like that, and that made me uncomfortable because that was a product that I was pushing on people that supported me and wanted to support BDG monetarily. At the time, I was told that I would get compensation for events, of course events that, you know, BDG stood to gain from, as far as exposure, if I made it on stream or anything like that. He did tell me though that he would try to get me the same contract that Miles had at the time. But because I was a smaller creator, he might not be able to provide me the same amount of money towards events. So what I was initially told in that phone call, I was given a specific number. I believe it was $50. Nothing above $50 would be given to me in support of events, which at the time I was like, yeah, that makes sense. Like I'm very new. I don't really have any achievements under my belt. It's an honor for a team to even approach me to begin with. I can take that. So the thing that I took issue with initially, and this was, you know, strike one already right off the bat, was that, you know, with, you know, being someone who has a following, who has an audience, and pushing a product, I personally don't believe, and maybe some people disagree with me, I personally don't believe that you should be pushing a product that you don't have any personal experience with yet. And I also don't believe that it's right for a company to approach you and ask you to pay for things right off the bat. I think if a brand is legitimate and they believe in what you have to offer, what you have to bring to the table, then those things should be provided to you. It's a, you know, it's a I scratch your back, you scratch my back kind of deal. But what I was told is that I would need to pick 2 pieces of merchandise off of their Amazon store at the time, and I would just have to send the receipt, and refunds would be given out to me. As soon as they saw the receipt, they would give those refunds back. They said at the time that refunds were given out on the 1st and 15th of each month. All right, and this is where a lot of the issues started to arise. So we're going to establish a timeline here. On November 24th is when, we agreed that I would be a part of the team, and that's when I bought my merch. On November 28th is when I gave him an update on the merch, and November 29th is when I finally told him that I received the merch. I assumed that because I had received it before the end of the month, that the refunds would be given to me on the 1st of the month, like he had said. He said that it came every 1st and 15th of the month, which made sense. I was like, okay, that's enough for like a pay period and like a regular job or whatever. So I was like, all right, that makes sense. But the beginning of the month came and I didn't get the money back. So I was just like, I was confused, but I also thought like, okay, I've been kind of busy. I haven't sent the pictures in yet, so maybe that's why I didn't get the money back. Maybe they'll give it back once I finally send the pictures. So I reach out on December 2nd and we just exchange a few words, and I just let them know that the photos and the video clips for the announcement video were in progress. I told him what my plan was, as far as getting a PS4 specifically for my PS4 to stream, because the computer I thought I was going to be getting from my family just didn't end up happening. Hi, sorry for the sudden video quality change. I just wanted to add that I am keeping him updated with all these things because I was under the impression that maybe he thought that I forgot about what I was supposed to provide for the team, and I thought like if I just gave him updates, maybe that meant that I would get my money sooner, and that's why I included these parts in the video. On December 3rd, I asked him where I need to send the pictures and video clips. He didn't answer, so I had to find the graphic designer myself through the Discord, just kind of by context clues. On December 4th, we have a meeting, apparently, and they always did this thing where they would kind of give us an open forum and just kind of let us have the floor and tell us, what can we do to improve? Are you guys enjoying your stay on the team? Are there any problems that you're having? Now is your time to speak. I didn't think it was appropriate to bring up, the refund thing, because it kind of had to do with money, and I just didn't know if I was the only one who had like this odd issue with the refund. So I brought it up on the side on Discord with the managing director. And I said I didn't know if it was appropriate to bring up in the meeting. I was just wondering about the refunds for merch and when I would be signing the contract. Mind you, when this phone call with Oliver, this interview had happened, I was told that I would have a contract. And, considering the fact that I had already bought merchandise for the brand and I already had it in hand, you would assume that I would have a contract. Otherwise, this content that I would be giving them for my introduction video, it was being done for free and uncontracted, which doesn't make any sense. But again, I was still new, so I just kind of went with it. And mind you, this is December 4th. He says, send me your email and full name. Contract will be sent tonight. I send the full email. I forget to send my full name. And then on the next day, December 5th, I send my full name. And then December 11th comes. I still haven't received a contract. I didn't know why that was happening. I asked about it. He said that he sent it when we spoke. I never got a contract, but he said that he would resend it the next day. I didn't get it the next day, which would have been the 12th. I didn't get it until the 14th of December. So I'm aware that it might seem somewhat mild that I had to wait 2 weeks for a contract. However, I included this part because allegedly, from, little birdies, or maybe my mind, maybe it's just fairy tale, there may or may not be people working for this brand without a contract who are being worked to the bone and are, pushing out content consistently without a contract. And I can't imagine that my experience would have been much different had I not given pushback, because it was understood apparently by Oliver that I had a contract already. And I remember another manager at the time, I think he was the person who was running like the event support, like as far as getting monetary support. I think he had told me like, oh, I don't know like what, details are in your contract or how I can help you with events. But at that time when he had told me that, I didn't have a contract to begin with. So there's a very bad precedent in here. So now we arrive at the end of the month of December of 2019. We are at December 29th. I still, I thought that things were going okay because I finally got my contract, but I still had not got my refund. I ask, hey, Ollie, are the merch refunds going to come in on the 1st? And he says, that's the plan. Between the 1st and the 15th, I will make sure yours is first on my list. And then on January 1st, he asked me how much the apparel was, which I didn't understand why he asked that, because I had already sent him a screenshot in the Twitter DMs initially as soon as I ordered the merch. But of course, I resend the invoice that I received from Amazon, and then I don't get anything. A week later, we have another meeting for the stream team, and again, they give us a floor and they ask, how are you feeling? How do you feel with the team, stuff like that. And I once again bring up that I have not received the refund, and I brought it up in the meeting, actually, like through the voice chat. I find out because I brought it up that somebody else who was also new to the team at the time hadn't received their refund for the merch either. And at that point I was like, this is kind of weird. Why am I not the only one that has not been given this refund that we were promised on specific dates? You've stated these dates multiple times, and now there's multiple people who have not gotten their refunds. He messaged me on the side. He's like, he says sorry. He says, I believe in the meeting through voice chat, he asked for my email, so I give him my email once again for my PayPal. He said, so embarrassed, I thought this was sorted. I just say, it's fine, I know you've been busy, because at the beginning of every single meeting, the higher-ups always love to stress how busy he was, and how it was we were even lucky to get a lick of his time because he was always busy doing something, which was fair enough. And I just told him, I know you've been busy, I just don't want that to be the standard, because it kept getting pushed to another date, which doesn't make sense. God, like, I can't explain anything in a short amount of time, so I'm refilming this. I was living off of savings at the time. $50 was a big dent in my pocket, and I also bought a tripod and a new ring light for the pictures and the video, the announcement video, and I justified that because I thought if I'm spending $30 here on these new things, then I'm going to get $50 back, and that will make up for what I lost here in this purchase, and it'll be fine, because I thought I was going to get my refund on time. Okay, we're at January 9th now. He sends me screenshots the next day that he had requested for this to be sent out. He shows me, I wasn't the only one that was, owed money. He tells me, you will 100% have this Saturday and it will never happen again. So this is the first occurrence that happens that has to do with monetary support. And I don't want to, well, at the time I just thought, like, I'm not going to assume that they don't have the money to support the players. Like they said, I'm not going to assume the worst. I'm just going to assume that this was a weird occurrence. Maybe like people just straight up forgot. Like, I forget to reply to messages all the time. Like, maybe it was just one of those situations. Of course, it's a shitty business practice to not give people what they want at the time that's promised, but I'm not gonna see this as the worst. On February 2nd, I get a DM from the Brutal Democracy Twitter, and they ask me, are you saving for a PC, Umbra? We would be happy to help you with some funds towards it. I tell them, yes, I am saving for a PC. That's what all my Twitch revenue is going towards right now. Also, I apologize if I don't respond for a while. I'm barely heading off to bed. I responded with I think that was 12 minutes later, and as you can see in the screenshot, they did not ever touch base with that ever again. On the same day, because they did offer me that donation towards my PC fund, I felt comfortable enough to tell them that we finally figured out the cost for the hotel and the flight for DreamHack Anaheim. So I send them a DM, and I just kind of tell them, like, upfront, like, yo, this is kind of expensive, the route that we're choosing to go. If I could just get some help with the hotel fee, that would be fantastic. I know that other people under the team, under Brutal Democracy, had gotten their events paid for in full, equal to the amount of my hotel. So I was like, okay, if they can get that amount of money, then, like, I'm not going to be scared to ask for this. Like, to me, that's fair, right? I'm obviously growing really quickly, but, maybe I'm wrong. He doesn't get back to me until February 6th. On February 6th, he tells me that he wants to speak to me about the event. We talk the next day on February 7th. And on February 7th is when we had a phone call that was very telling. I have had my suspicions. As I mentioned earlier in this video, there were some red flags that I saw really early on. I didn't want to think the worst, but I don't know, things were happening that just were kind of rubbing me the wrong way. So on this call, he tells me that internally there are people that promised that they had more money than they actually had, like certain stakeholders within the company, and they didn't actually have the money that they said they did, so they didn't really have a lot of money to put into the company, which was, I don't know, which was weird to me, I guess, because it just kind of seemed like, I don't know, like if that's your excuse now, then like what was your excuse before, when like so many people were waiting weeks and weeks and months for compensation that they should have had within like 2 weeks time, within a week's time. Like it didn't make any sense to me. But he, that's what he told me. I took it as what it was. He told me that they only put resources into their bigger players. He said something along the lines of like, if it doesn't make sense for us to not send them out there, someone with a name as big as Miles or someone like Blue God who won like Evo Japan, then obviously we're going to send them out. But for smaller creators, like you've got to work your way up in order to earn those same things. And because the contract was so vague and there was no value placed on like the exact amount of support I would get for events, I guess I just had to take that for what it was. He offered me a certain amount, which was, at the time I thought it was fair. It covered a tiny fraction of the cost of that trip, but I just thought, if I can get at least some help from a brand, at least I can say that my brand fucking helped me pay for this trip. I don't know, it was just such a chase to be like this sponsored player who was getting like helped by her sponsor, and I didn't have to pay for things, and I was this cool girl, and I had a following, and I was cool, and it was just so bad. So I accepted the offer. But during the same call, he was also telling me that, we just got to keep faith in the brand. And the subject of Japan was brought up for me and another player on the team. He said that if both of us, if the company had a good year and if both of us also had a good year as far as growth and performance, that we may even be able to go out to Japan like UIU did for Aru. And, that was awesome to hear. But in my mind and in my heart, I'm like, there's no fucking way. Like, if you're struggling to pay for something as simple as merchandise that's like $50 something, why do you think that I'm gonna believe that you're ever gonna send me out to Japan? It raised suspicions for me at the time, but I guess, again, I just took it for what it was, and I didn't want to think too much of it. And I just thought, well, maybe if they're really that cool of a brand, they really would do that for me. That call ends, and I kind of have a bad taste in my mouth afterwards. The way that he was talking to me was kind of condescending. He was, it was kind of like, yeah, well, like, of course we don't, put this much resources into the smaller creators and the smaller players and stuff like that. Yeah, of course. And, you got to understand, like, you're not as big as the rest of them or whatever. And it just made me feel weird. But I, took a mental note, kept that in the back of my mind. I accepted the money that they did offer for the trip. And we kept it moving. Now there comes a time when we had found another like apparel company to manufacture our jerseys. It was promised in, I believe, at least one or two meetings before, like way prior, that we would get jerseys sent to us, that they want to get jerseys sent to all the players. And they knew that I was competing under the BDG name and I never got one. They held a meeting and they told us not to order from our current jersey like shipper or like maker or whatever, because they weren't a good brand to work with. And then when we found our new company, they had told us in the meeting that the players would get jerseys once again, and they listed off people, and they had called me out specifically. And they had said that the jersey would be out in about 3 weeks, and you can see that I knew this, that I heard this in the meeting, because I reached out on the 13th and I asked, yo, did you say that the jerseys would take like 3 weeks or something to get out to the players? It would be cool to have one before my major on Saturday if possible. And I was talking about DreamHack. Of course, they never get back to me. And then we get to March after DreamHack, and this is after my top 8 run at DreamHack. This was probably the height of everything that I was doing, when my competitive reputation was at its height, when my social media following was growing quicker than it ever had before, literally to the point where I had to completely get off of social media because I felt like there was too much attention on me, and it made me feel really uncomfortable. I was doing fantastic. The Brutal Democracy Twitter is reaching out to me, And before I had went away, I had told our stream team manager I was gonna go away, that I didn't really feel like in like a good spot to be on social media at the time, and to try to, you know, grow stream and all that shit. I just wanted to be like offline for a while. The Twitter is still reaching out to me on a regular basis, and finally on March 10th they ask if everything is okay. Miles actually had to call me to tell me that they were trying to get a hold of me. So I tell them like, yo, I'm sorry, like I just got Miles's call, like I thought I had communicated to so and so that some stuff was going on, I wasn't going to be able to be online much. I don't know if that was ever passed along. I didn't mean to worry anybody. Now this is an issue that I have. I'm going to say that this is alleged. You know, this could be something that I completely made up in my mind, but from what I've heard, my name specifically was brought up in conversation with someone else who ran a smaller esports org. And they were told that I was difficult to work with. They were naming off specific people who were difficult to work with. So this message just completely contradicts that, like, oh, like it's not like you to not reply. And I was gonna say, like, that was the one L that I would take. Like, I know that I'm really shitty at replying. Sometimes I'll just open messages and just think to myself like, oh, I'll message them later. Like, that's the one L that I will take, is sometimes I probably took like a day or two or something to respond. But for them to say that I was difficult to work with is bullshit. That's just not true. I had been very fair this whole time. Like I said, like I wasn't like going up in arms about the fact that I wasn't getting refunded for the merch that I was promised in my first week, and instead it took 2 months. I wasn't going up in arms about the fact that I was being undercut because I wasn't as big as the other players and other content creators. And because the contract was so vague, they were able to do so. I was not going up in arms about the fact that they held this trip to Japan over my head. I wasn't getting up in arms about the fact that they held this donation towards my PC fund over my head, and nothing ever came to that. And I wasn't, you know, going out and exposing them and talking about how the company is falling apart from the inside out. I never said any of that, and I just believed in them like he asked me to. So for him to say that about me, it just really, it annoys me. I had been approached to host a weekly podcast with the managing director. They wanted to create more video content with me, especially at events, and this is before coronavirus had really gotten bad. So my thing is, you know, if you're gonna say that I'm hard to work with, I don't understand why you're also sitting here blowing smoke up my ass, telling me that you want to take things to the next level with me, that you're astonished, and constantly responding to my tweets on the timeline. And, you know, we're so proud of you, we stand behind you 100%. During Black Lives Matter, they responded to my tweets, we stand behind you 100%. Whenever I was calling out transphobia, we stand behind you 100%. But then you're gonna tell someone else that I'm difficult to work with? I don't know, that's kind of bullshit. If me being completely open and honest about the way that I feel about certain things, and things that just feel like I would be selling out for the sake of a brand, if me being open about those things makes me hard to work with, then I guess I would rather be hard to work with than being some pack mule, or some just like selling out to the people that like actually give a shit about me. Like that's not my thing. And if that angers someone or annoys someone, then like I don't give a fuck, like I don't care. So they approached me about this damn podcast, but nothing ever comes to the podcast. They suddenly tell me that it's going to be run by someone else. You know, I do an episode of the podcast, and then there's really no other content from then on that I'm involved in. So around this same time, the topic of the jerseys comes up again, because I see that a bunch of other people are being sent theirs. And honestly, like, I'm not trying to be any type of way, but some of the people that were getting their merch were people who didn't have the same engagement that I did. Like, I didn't have like as big of a following as some of those people on the team did, but my engagement and like the quality of the people that followed me and the people who were actually going to pay attention to what I said was a lot higher. And around this time I was also becoming increasingly frustrated with how that worked within the FGC, and I think a lot of it stemmed from just being with Brutal Democracy, seeing how they'll see like a check mark next to somebody's name, who can barely break like 10 likes on their status, but they'll put so much resources behind them because they're verified on Twitter. And I was like, why am I not being sent one? Like, is there something wrong? So I bring up the jerseys again, and I'm literally being told something completely opposite. Obviously you can see in that Discord message that I asked if it was going to take 3 weeks to get sent out, because that's what I was told in the meeting. And here, I guess that suddenly changed. I was supposed to order one and once again send them the receipt, which at that point I didn't even bother, because y'all already know how the whole fiasco turned out with the first go around of merchandise, and I wasn't trying to, you know, be out all that money, because I was planning on getting like a hoodie, and I think those were like $70-$80 or something. They were really expensive, but they were really fucking pretty, so I wanted to get one and I wanted to represent the team, but I'm not spending all that fucking money and like just hoping and praying that I'm gonna get refunded. Alright, so I obviously look a lot different than I did in the last clip that I recorded during editing, because I've literally taken a nap during the process of editing this video. But you can see that there's a very clear-cut issue here. At this point, I'm getting so fed up with their constant, like, empty promises that are being made. Even the smallest ones are just really bothering me, because there's just constantly things that are being thrown my way and guaranteed to me that I'm just not getting, to the point where I'm just submitting to it and just not bothering anymore. And it's not a good sign when you literally just give up on communication with your sponsor. And once again, I was a saint. I continued to represent the brand. I did what I was supposed to do. I was constantly growing. And you know, let's not mention the fact that I was also becoming a full-time streamer at the time. My streams were doing so well that I was able to make a living off of it full-time. And mind you, like I said before, one of the main things that was being emphasized when I was first approached was growth. Growth was the one thing that was going to get me more opportunities. Growth was the one thing that was going to get me, you know, what I wanted, the things that I was asking for. And still something as simple as a jersey still was not being given to me, and I was still expected to buy it and then get refunded later, when I know for a fact that other people in the brand, in the company, were not doing that. They were just being sent out. You know, it stops becoming a miscommunication when, you know, just straight up contradictory things are being told between different people, when, you know, the higher ups and the players have one understanding, and then like the managing director and the players have another understanding, and no one is communicating those differences to each other. It just doesn't work. It just doesn't work like that. So now we're gonna get to the ending of my journey with BDG. So I thought about it for a long time. I spent months and months and months just contemplating on it. I was like, I want to leave them really bad. I know that I could do so much better. I know that I'm capable of growing my brand on my own, and I kind of feel like I'm being held back because I have to carry another brand. Like, I don't really feel like doing that anymore. I got tired of being like obligated to host and raid other people whose content I didn't really like or support. I don't want to insult anyone who was ever on the team, but there were so many people who's like, I wouldn't watch their fucking streams. Like, I wouldn't watch their streams. I never even bothered to follow like half the people on the stream team because it was boring content. Like, a lot of them didn't know how to engage an audience. Like, and I'm not trying to be mean, that's just what the content was. And that's like what we were supposed to be focused on as a stream team. And I'm like, that's nonsensical. Like, I'm not going to be pushing this this bullshit content onto my people who really genuinely believe in what I'm doing, and just be a sellout. Like, that's not me. That's not my brand. Like, if you know me, you know my brand is just off of being real. Any post that I've had that's ever gone viral or whatever has gone viral because it's me being real, and it's me speaking from my heart, you know, whether it's exposing transphobia, whether it was even speaking on, you know, how shady brands can be a few days ago or whatever. Like, it's always been just me being me. I'm not some manufactured bitch, and I'm never gonna be. And that was another thing that bothered me also, was just kind of this preferential treatment within the team. You know, it was especially apparent when it came to the stream team meetings and a lot of the guidelines that they had for us just in general. They would even at everyone, and they would be like, well, if you don't make this team meeting, you're off the team. No, like, ifs, ands, or buts about it. If you haven't been active for a while, you're off the team. And then there would be people who didn't even fucking read the Twitter chat, or didn't even read the Discord, didn't even know that there was a meeting, and they would have nothing said to them about it because they were bigger influencers, they had bigger followings. And I just thought that was kind of shitty, because like, I shouldn't be held to a different standard and held to a more strict rule set than someone who is literally being told that they are held to the same rule set and has the same contract as me. Like, that doesn't make any sense. So of course there are a few meetings here and there that were actually important, but none of them were really, there was nothing substantial, because there was nothing happening within the brand. And in my opinion, it just felt like there was no direction. It almost felt as if they were trying to go in too many directions at once. One day they were focused on, the first person shooter, like the FPS, because that's where all the money was. Another day they were like, yep, we're really gonna, start to vamp up the stream team. Like, we're really gonna, crack down on those who aren't participating, and we're really gonna push those who are. And then after like a week or so, like, nobody would really care. During the meeting also, we would also be told, we really got to push like this family community, like, look, that's really good for the brand. We can't be that unless you guys actually are that. So y'all have got to start talking to each other. You got to start being in each other's streams. After you raid, you got to stay in the chat. You can't just leave. And it was all quite literally manufactured. That's not my opinion. It was literally being manufactured in these meetings. And there was clearly not a lot of chemistry between like a lot of the people on the team, because a lot of the people on the team came and went. So if there were friendships that were established, they didn't last long because the people were leaving. They were leaving soon after. And that was one thing that always confused me, is like, why are so many people being dropped? And especially people who are in management positions and stakeholders, why are they like constantly like not sticking around? Like, something's not right. Oh, this is one thing that really pissed me off about them not pushing our streams. When they did decide that they cared about the stream team, it would be like one retweet maybe from like one particular person, and then it would go weeks and weeks and weeks, or months and months and months, and nobody would really get anything. And I especially know that I got maybe 2 or 3 retweets for my entire time on BDG, and the deal was mutual support. I help you grow, you help me grow, and it just never happened. I never really got promotion out of BDG. Yeah, like, I stood to gain nothing from BDG. And this again is something that I mentioned before. Their engagement as a page with like 20k plus followers was not anything compared to mine. Like, I only have 1.4k followers right now, and at the time that I was with BDG, I think I had like 1.1. But that didn't mean anything, because like my engagement was really good. If I posted a really good picture, it could get like 200-300 likes. If I posted a really good video, like, that was just me speaking from my heart, I think one got to like as high as like 500 or something. And they could barely break like 50-60 likes on like any given post. And like, if it didn't include a picture and it was just a status, like, it was like maybe 10-20 likes. Like, I stood to gain nothing from whatever promotion they were offering me that I never even received. This angered me because the content that they were focusing on, it just wasn't up to par. Like, it wasn't the quality that it should have been. It was like weird like TikTok meme compilations, like gaming meme compilations that weren't funny. It was like highlights from the stream team, but none of the highlights were really funny. It was just like kind of people yelling or laughing within their voice chat or whatever, and it didn't really translate well through a clip. And like, a lot of the times their growth stemmed from like giveaway posts. Like, that's how they got all their followers, is by doing giveaways with bigger accounts. And the terms were, follow this account and follow Brutal Democracy, and you'll be entered into the giveaway. That's how they have the amount of followers that they do now. And I remember somebody brought this up in one of the meetings. And I remember one of the managers saying, well, yeah, like, it probably is going to be, like a lot of people who are going to unfollow after the giveaway is over, but at least this gives us like bigger numbers, and maybe this will make someone in the gaming community notice us, which is a problem, because those numbers aren't genuine. Those numbers are not genuine. Just because you have a bunch of people who were quick enough to see the follow button and were quick enough to see an opportunity to win money, just because they knew to click the follow button, doesn't mean that they know your company. It doesn't mean that they know what you do. That doesn't mean that it contributes anything to your engagement. It meant nothing. And that's what they were so proud of, is how fast we were growing. And we weren't growing. We were not growing. If anything, we were stagnant at the time that I was around. I didn't want to be a part of that anymore. Another thing that I was also like really displeased with was the fact that they were picking up so many creators. And they were picking up people for like any reason. Like, they picked up like cosplayers, they picked up podcasters, they picked up like content creators, they picked up like YouTubers and TikTokers and photographers and shit, which is like fine if you want them as part of the brand. But my main issue is the fact that like all these people were being picked up at once, and some of them were like extremely small, like incredibly small. and these people were included in the content team. And as far as I know, at least this is what was on my contract, we are contractually obligated to monetary support when it comes to events. So in my head, I was like, well, if all these people are being picked up at once, say there's like an event that happens all of a sudden, even though Corona is a thing right now, say there's like an event that can suddenly happen and it's safe to go, and all these people suddenly at once are asking for support for events. They don't have enough to support everybody that they were picking up. And that to me, I was like, well, what are you gonna do then? Like, either you're not gonna provide what you're promised, or you're giving different contracts to different people depending on what you think they deserve, or there's people who do not have contracts at all. And this, people not having contracts at all, that is one thing that I know has happened for a fact. It's so simple to just give someone what they're promised, and if you don't intend on following through with that promise, and don't waste someone's time. Not to mention the fact that, allegedly, there may or may not be people who are paying to be affiliated with BDG. There could or could not be people who are being paid $60 to do graphics for BDG, but because they are in a different country, it allegedly they're living like a star over there because the currency is different. Allegedly, there could be people who had done months for BDG for months and months and months, coming close to a year, and were never given a contract even though they asked multiple times. Allegedly, somebody who previous to the person who was making $60, God forbid, there was somebody else who was making $30 to make graphics. They were making $30 a month. And at that time, they were constantly made to be the butt of the joke in all of our meetings and saying like, oh, we're working him to the bone. Like, oh, we just bother him all the time. We're just stressing him out. We're working him like a slave. And he's getting everything done for us. We're so appreciative of him just to give him a contract and $30 a month. And expect him to make promos and banners and videos and graphics and everything for the entire team with no extra compensation is ridiculous. Also, not to mention that allegedly people that are being considered for the team are allegedly being described as being too flamboyant, and they're being compared to past LGBTQ members of the org, being told we don't want another one of them. There's screenshots of this shit that exists. But it's not my story to tell. These people that have these screenshots, and these people that whatever, this may or may not have happened to you. It's not my story to tell. Allegedly, of course, this is all alleged. Like I said, I could be completely making this up in my mind. This could all be fantasy. These hypothetical things that could or could not have happened. Use your own best judgment. And this is something that I never wanted to bring to the surface. For such a long time, I respected everybody in BDG. I respected all the higher ups, even though I didn't understand why things were happening the way that they were. I had immense respect, if not for everybody on the team, then for the one managing director who I've always kept in close contact with. Even though we have had issues between us, I still respected him because on the surface he seemed like a really nice guy. In his tone of voice and the way that he spoke to you, he made you feel like a friend. And he made it seem like it was just this small little organization that just started off as like a group of friends on Xbox Live, and all of a sudden it turned into a company, and they started growing so quickly, and they just wanted to grow and grow and grow and be as big as these big teams, these big organizations within the FGC, like UIU, Equinox, Team Spooky, or whatever. Like, they wanted to be on the same level. And I was like, well, this is someone who started from the bottom and is now working their way up to their dream, and I can respect that. So I respected the manager for a long time. So now we're coming to my final exchange with BDG. Which took place on July 24th of 2020. The only reason that I came to the conclusion that I did not want to do this anymore is because I was sent not a contract, but it was just like a new set of rules that literally laid out numbers of how much we were supposed to retweet other people's content, how much we were supposed to like other people's content, how often we were supposed to raid over to people's content, and who we had to contact if we weren't able to do so, or why we weren't able to do so. There were rules being put in place to how we had to support the other members. And once again, that to me is completely disingenuous. If I don't support your content myself, if I wouldn't watch it or support it or pay for it, I'm not pushing it on my people. I didn't believe in what they were doing anymore. Which was, a heartbreaking conclusion to come to, but it just was what it was. So allegedly, I was also being told, I had friends that were that talked to one of the people who put money into BDG, and they were telling me that they had a falling out with BDG, that they, were planning on completely pulling out financially, that they felt like it was a waste of money. So in my head at this point, it was confirmed. I was like, they're falling apart from the inside out. I have nothing else to gain here. It's been a great experience. Like, they literally drove me to build myself from the ground up. Like, they were a giant part of my motivation. Let me just leave it at a good note, and I'll just stop it here. But this final interaction, although it wasn't the worst, it was just a cherry on top to everything that I've described thus far. So I reach out to the managing director and I say, hey, you got time for a quick talk over DM? A few things go back and forth, and I finally say, I wanted to come to you directly because I genuinely respect you and I'm thankful that you saw something in me, but it just feels like it's time for me to move on from BDG for all the reasons that I've told you, before. He asked me why, and I say, if I'm being honest, it feels like I'm only staying on this org because of the potential of getting help for events in the future, and that's not me. This is no disrespect to you, but I don't believe in a lot of the creators that have been picked up. These recent role implementations just feel incredibly disingenuous to me. When I streamed during the same hours as Miles, I rated to her when I could, rated to Nikki and supported his content when I could, tried to drop into other people's streams, but a lot of it is stuff I wouldn't watch myself. It's dishonest of me to push that on my audience as a requirement and stay with an org purely for personal gain. None of this that he is saying to me now I've never heard this before. This is news to me. You only need to support or raid other FGC content creators and obviously the team. It wouldn't be fair otherwise. A lot of the role implementation is more to bring everyone in closer, not to push anyone away, and that's certainly not what is being done here with you. He tries to call me. I tell him that I can't, because at the time my mind was set, and I really just didn't want to cry if I got on a phone call with him, because that's what I would have ended up doing, and I probably would have ended up staying on the org just because I would have felt so bad. So I just say I'm in bed with my partner, and I just kind of can't really take a call right now. But I do tell him it just doesn't sit right with me. If rules need to be implemented for people to be on the org, not just me, to push each other's content when they wouldn't do it otherwise, it's disingenuous. Only supporting other teammates for a paycheck or financial support isn't cool to me. He finally tells me, I completely understand where you're coming from, but I'm not asking you to change anything here. Keep working closely with our FGC competitors. That's all. That it doesn't make sense for me to raid to other people that don't correspond with my audience. And then he says, realistically, you're a competitor with brutal democracy, and that's what you will be supported with. You have no obligation to the content side. Per my contract, right? That's what that says. He says, I hope this makes sense. I don't want to make you emotional, and any decisions you make I will respect and support. Like I said, whatever you chose, I'm so proud of the brand you have built, and I will always be an avid supporter of you. Tell him my heart really hurts to say it, Ollie, because it did. I was genuinely sad. But I gotta stick with my gut and focus on my own brand. Thank you so incredibly much for seeing anything in me to begin with. I hope there's no hard feelings. I want to handle it properly, so I'll only start to remove the BDG brand off of my social media with your blessing. He tells me that I have his blessing. I ask if I can post something final in the team chats before I leave. I do that and I'm gone. And I even made a video paying homage to my time with BDG because I was incredibly grateful for the fact that they picked me up at the time. Realistically, they didn't have to. I had nothing to give them really. But everything that I built by myself. I built everything by myself. I might have had support from people with bigger followings than I had, like Miles, for example. Miles was always an avid supporter of my content, more so than BDG ever was, but Miles is like my sister. Of course she's gonna support me, and after Miles got me to a certain point, like I said, there were just so many posts that I made that were just me being me, and just me speaking on things that mattered, and that's what pushed me to the point that I am now. It took a long time to realize, I was telling them in every post, yeah, thank you so much for helping me build from the ground up. Thank you so much for believing in me. I'm so lucky. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It took me so long to finally see past all that bullshit and all that, just blowing smoke up each other's ass and be like, I did this, and I owe myself the credit, and I owe myself the gratification to run it however I want. And if that means that I run it as a free agent, that's how I'm gonna go, because that's what I believe in, and that's what I have faith in right now. It makes me incredibly sad that things have gotten to the point where they are now. I encourage you to speak up if you've had any experiences with BDG that are less than favorable, because the more of us that do it, the more strength that we give to those who are too scared to do so, because there are some fucked up things that are happening, allegedly. behind the scenes that nobody is ever going to know about otherwise. And we all need to stand together and make sure that this is either corrected or completely dispelled from the FGC. I will leave the links to people who have been brave enough to share their stories in the bio of this video, or the description of this video, so feel free to go and check those out, and please share those as well. Again, I never ask for anything, but if I could just kindly ask that y'all support this video, help share it, and help share the stories of everybody else who is coming forward, it would mean the absolute world to me. Thank you so much if you've taken the time to come this far in the video. That's pretty much all I've got to say for now. Thank you so much, and bye.